July is perhaps one of the busiest and most important months that I've seen so far in astrology this year. So I think it's really important that we take a step back for a minute, slow down, and before we reach the start of July, really delve into a new month of astrology and what exactly it's going to mean for us. The month of July is filled with sign changes, retrogrades, new moons, full moons, you name it. It probably happens in the month of July. So that's why I wanted to sit down and make this video. I think that it's really important that we review the month ahead before we reach it. It helps us to better plan, better understand what might be coming next, all of the above. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Hi, my name is Liv and welcome to Blade of Desire. This is your home for all things astrological, spiritual, and wellness related, all in one. I am a practicing consulting astrologist and regular tarot reader, chart reader, so if you ever wanted to book a reading with me and dive into your own chart a little bit more, maybe your own future or just whatever's going on in your life at the moment, be sure to book a reading with me at www.bladeofdesire.com, and I will have that linked down below as well. Let us start with a brief high-level overview of July and what we'll see coming. In the first few weeks of July, we will see humongous changes and shifts in the way that we think and we operate. We're going to see that thanks to Uranus, Venus, and also Neptune. These are huge planets that really impact us a lot day to day, especially Uranus and Neptune, as they're farther away planets and their transits tend to be more powerful and more monumental. So we're starting off the month with a bang, and it really comes out of the gate running. That's the only opportunity we get. July is busy, it's fast-paced astrologically, and it's asking a lot of us. It's asking us to really sit down and review why we think the way we think, why we perform the actions that we do, and who we have in our lives, and if they're the connections that we need to have. We are going to have a full moon in Capricorn, a new moon in Leo. We will have Mercury go retrograde, and we will also have one other planet go retrograde. I believe that's Saturn. So there's a lot of movement in the air this month, and it doesn't slow down throughout the month, and it doesn't really all happen at once. There's consistency with these events all across the board all month long. So I would just prepare yourself to be ready for that continual action and movement, because that is what July is asking of us. On top of this, Venus will change signs, Mercury, I believe, will change signs, and we will also enter Leo season. So the sun is going to change signs as well. Right now, we are in this softer, Cancer, gentle, nurturing homebody energy, and we're going to rapidly shift into Leo season, which puts us in a much different state of mind. This month will really challenge us in several different ways. It will force us to pursue what we see as our own personal growth and to reanalyze what's working for us and what isn't. It'll also force us to redefine our sense of communication and how we're communicating our internal thoughts with others. It'll force us to analyze ideas of security and what security means to us and what well-being looks like overall. Now, that was essentially just a little bit of a higher level overview, so let's dive in week by week, friends. To kick off the month with a pretty big bang, we are going to have Venus and Uranus conjunct on July 4th of July. They are going to conjunct in the final degree of Taurus, which is really, really important because that means that Taurus themes are going to come to light in a big way with this transit. So expect ideas of Taurus like stability and security to really come to the forefront with this transit. I think we'll see big themes of relationships related to security and stability, as well as what feels like bigger or more monumental events occurring, whether that is an event in and of itself or maybe a big conversation. Anything like that, that is what Uranus is all about. It likes to shake things up, it likes big events, and it really forces us to realign with our growth and the path that we're headed down. Just a few hours later, so also on the 4th of July, Venus is going to enter Gemini, and this is a pretty big switch up as well, energy-wise. Before, Venus was in the sign of Taurus. So again, like we just discussed, Taurus is all about slowing down. It's about finding security and stability. But now we're moving into the very mentally stimulating, fast-moving sign of Gemini. It's an air sign, so you really never know what's coming next. And honestly, this is a transit that I really like because I think it shakes things up in a fun way, especially after being in the sign of Taurus and kind of being in that slower moving energy. Venus in Gemini is fun, it's exciting, it's flirty, there's lots of new conversations, new things going on. It's a really great time to connect with someone new or have a new fun conversation or maybe a new date night, do something you've never tried before. Venus in Gemini is just fun. It's good energy, it's mentally stimulating, it forces us to get out of our comfort zone and really step into our true selves with our relationships and self-expression. July 4th is a pretty big moment in astrology because not only are those two things happening, but Neptune is also stationing retrograde in the sign of Aries. A Neptune retrograde lasts about 5 months each year, so during this time we tend to see illusions fall. It may not be something that you necessarily feel through like an action or an event, but it's just something that you notice over time. Essentially like a curtain falling or the veil lifting. That is the energy that this planet brings to us. Because it's occurring in the sign of Aries, we're going to see naturally Aries themes light up during this time. So we'll tend to turn more inward about self-identity, ego, how we see ourselves, our actions, the way we move. Anything about Aries and its own themes are what we're going to see present during this time. Next up, on the 7th of July, we have probably one of the most important astrological events of this year, if not in a really long time, and that is the planet of Uranus entering the sign of Gemini. Now, this planet will spend about 7 years or so in the sign of Gemini, and it's really important because Uranus hasn't been in the sign of Gemini since almost the 1940s. So this is going to bring us a very mentally stimulating time of change and discovery, and we'll feel this on both a collective and a personal level, which I think is really important. So it's really going to influence us as a society and as a whole, but also just us ourselves, and we can get a better look at that if we check out our own transit charts as well, because they'll provide a better idea of what your own planets are aspecting to the planet of Uranus, if that makes sense. Personally, this will lead us to question our own mental flexibility, our independence when it comes to thinking, and what influences the way that we think and speak. Moving on to week 2, this is going to be a pretty busy week as well, as we have a full moon in the sign of Capricorn, and we're also going to experience Saturn going retrograde in the sign of Aries, I believe. I've made a lot of videos about this actually in the past, but I think that full moons are really important times astrologically and individually to basically take stock on what's been going on in your life, especially as far as goals and intentions you've been setting. So again, spiritually and astrologically, full moons are a time when we go back and essentially look at a higher level of everything that's going on in our life. We want to analyze what's working, what's not working, all of those great things so we can move forward with more clarity. And the reason why we do this on a full moon versus like a new moon, for example, is because a full moon is illuminating. It's the sun reflecting off the moon and illuminating things that we haven't seen with full clarity before. It really forces us to wake up and open our eyes to what we need to see and what needs to change in our lives. This is a full moon in Capricorn, like I said, so it's going to force us to really analyze Capricorn themes, especially because at this point we will still be in Cancer season. The sun will be in Cancer, but we're experiencing a full moon in Capricorn, and this on the zodiac wheel, these are two opposite signs, so it really forces us to analyze the balance between the themes of each of these signs. So Capricorn is all about building a legacy, being hardworking, going after what you want, being dedicated, being loyal. And Cancer energy is the same, but it's about being nurturing, being a homebody, being softer, caring for yourself. So we'll kind of need to see these two things balance out into one. That's what the full moon in Capricorn wants us to find. I think I might have left this out, but we will experience this full moon in Capricorn on July 10th. Next up, on July 13th, we are going to see Saturn turn retrograde in the sign of Aries. Anytime a planet goes retrograde in astrology, it forces us to turn inward about the themes of that planet. So think the ideas of Saturn, we're going to go intrinsic about those ideas and how we feel about them. And Saturn is a heavy planet. It rules over discipline and commitment and loyalty and our respect to what we're working on in our lives. So it's a really important planet to kind of analyze during this time, and it's forcing us to look at what we're putting our time into and what's working and what isn't. Okay, let's move into week 3 of July astrology. Kicking off week 3 on July 18th, we will see Mercury go into retrograde in the sign of Leo. So, like I've said before, any planet going retrograde essentially means that we are turning much more inward about the themes of that planet, and especially the sign that this planet is going retrograde in. So, we're going to see ourselves essentially evolve and shift and reanalyze our own expression of communication and how we evolve using communication and how we essentially express our highest and our best self, especially because Leo is all about this. It's all about the self, the identity, and putting yourself out there, being confident. It's ruled by the sun. So all of those elements and themes we're going to turn more inward about, and we're going to analyze how these are affecting our lives and if we're really expressing ourselves truly through our communication, or if we're hiding how we really feel and how we really are, because Leo, it likes true expression. It likes us to be honest and open, and if we're not communicating in the same sense, then that is denying ourselves part of that openness and honesty. I also recommend avoiding signing contracts, doing any legal paperwork, making huge decisions, moving forward with plans, unless they've been meticulously thought out and figured out before. I think Mercury retrograde is when a lot of things tend to go wrong, and so that's why I just advise to be careful doing any of those communicative things during those times. One caveat that I do see with this is those with their Mercury natally retrograde. So, for example, my Mercury sign is natally retrograde, and I see Mercury retrogrades as a time where I actually tend to flourish. So I would pay attention to your own birth chart and see if you naturally have any planets retrograde, because you might experience retrogrades a little bit differently, and I've noticed that with a lot of clients as well that I've spoken with. Heading towards the end of July is really a fun time because we're going to be getting a lot of Leo energy. So in the 4th week of July, we're going to have a new moon in the sign of Leo, but we're also going to see the sun move into the sign of Leo. The sun being in the sign of Leo is such a good point in the year because the sun is at home in Leo. The sun rules over Leo, so we're going to see themes of health and vitality and movement and getting out there and being yourself and being confident and self-assertive. Those are all important themes of Leo season and things that we'll really see highlighted. Next, on July 24th, we will have a new moon in Leo. So this is a really transformative time for being creative and authentic. Like I previously mentioned, a new moon is the perfect time for setting new habits, new intentions, new goals. It's the opposite of the full moon. We'll want to be starting a new cycle rather than reviewing what's been going on in the past and what we see moving forward. So the new moon is all about setting new goals. Because Mercury is still in retrograde during this time, it might be a good idea to envision and plan goals, maybe not step into immediate action quite yet. So this is a little bit different than just a regular new moon because Mercury is in retrograde. It's all about practicing that caution that retrograde season brings us. Last but definitely not least, in the last week of July, we have a few more key events that are going to go down before we enter the month of August. First, we're going to have Chiron become retrograde in the sign of Aries. Chiron in astrology is what is known as our wounded healer. So it essentially establishes some of our deepest and most vulnerable wounds. It's a really heavy point, and it is not a planet or anything like that. It is named after, again, a wounded healer. It comes from a centaur who had essentially like an eternal wound that couldn't be healed. So that's kind of where we get that name and explanation from today. That being said, because Chiron is moving retrograde in the sign of Aries, we're going to be forced to analyze once again the themes of Aries. So we're going to be paying attention to ourselves and our own movement and self-expression and how that impacts us and our own deepest vulnerabilities. So this is a perfect time for going inward towards the end of July. Focus on a lot of journaling, a lot of introspection, and really pay attention to how you express yourself and how that impacts some of your deepest fears or deepest wounds. On the last day of the month, Venus will enter the sign of Cancer, influencing us to really slow down when it comes to our relationships and self-expression, especially after being in the very stimulating sign of Gemini. You may feel a lot more sensitive during this time, and that is totally normal. Venus in Cancer essentially wants us to slow down, to root ourselves in our home life and our secure, stable relationships. So really pay attention to pouring yourself into that this time of month and allowing yourself to slow down and really pay attention to the slower things in life. Overall, July is such a big month in astrology, and it really forces us, because we have so many retrogrades and so many planets in moving sign, to turn inward and really analyze how we feel about ourselves, how we're expressing ourselves, and if our goals and visions are really aligning with our current point in life. That being said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope that you learned something and got a better plan maybe of your month ahead and how you want to structure it. Like I said, I love paying attention to the astrology of the month ahead. I feel like it just gives me a better idea of maybe what's going on or what to expect or what themes might show up in my life. So I thought that would be helpful to you all too. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget that you can book a reading with me below at belatedofdesire.com if you are wanting a more personal look into your astrology for the upcoming month. I will see you all so soon in the next video, but until then, peace and love. Bye.